As the weather gets warmer, people in Boston need to enjoy the outdoors, and that includes getting to Franklin Park for the annual Kite and Bike Festival. To tell us about the event on Saturday, May 16th, is our guest from one of the two sponsoring groups, the Executive Director of Discover Roxbury, Director Lumpkins. Thank you very much for being with us, Derek.
Good to see you again.
So where exactly in the park is this event going to be happening this year?
It will be in the playstead between the zoo and White Stadium.
Now, for people who don't know what this feels like and looks like, describe this.
Just a really fun-filled, family-friendly event. The playstead is a huge amount of open space, plenty of room for kites. You know, nice breeze comes flowing in. There are food trucks that are set up. We'll probably have about a half dozen food trucks there. There'll be a kite vendor as well. And just if you have small kids, you're going to love it because you just let them run as far as they can run. You have no worries about whether they're going to be hurt because it's a nice soft field, lots of fun. The kids have a great time. It's just a fantastic family
now, a lot
event.
of people might say, you know, flying kites, come on, I'm not Ben Franklin, but I guess once you go there, if you take a kid or even if you don't take a kid, it's kind of infectious. You want to do what everybody else is doing.
It really is, and you know, a lot of us are here in the city, and so it's nice just to be in a nice outdoor space. And you know, the fact that you're flying a kite, you're not connected to the phone, you're not at a computer, you're not behind a desk. You just have the sense of freedom because you have all this open space, all this open green space that you don't normally get to feel or experience here in the city. So it's just a nice, free, fun-flowing event.
And, you know, this is also a way to, you know, get people into the park and talk about how important it is, because I know that you got a golf course, you got a zoo, but getting people to other parts of the park to connect with them, how important is that to preserving the park? It's
extremely important because, again, like you mentioned, the zoo and the golf course, people will go there, they'll pay to be there, and there are known quantities. You know, people need to connect with nature in a different way. They need to connect with the park in a different way, in part because they need to know that the park is important to the overall ecosystem of the city. You know, it provides some fresh air for the city. It also is just a great recreational spot that a lot of people tend to forget about during the rest of the year. So this is a great way to reintroduce them to the park and to the neighborhood.
And one of the last times I went, I ended up parking in Jamaica Plain. I thought I might not be able to get too close to this, but one of the benefits of parking a little farther away is that you get to walk through the wooded areas of the park.
And they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. The Franklin Park Coalition, who we're partnering with, they do a lot in terms of maintaining the wooded areas and the wildernesses, removing some of the invasive species, and really opening up the park to make it accessible to everyone.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about it, because we've just come through a rough winter, and I guess they had some work to do this year.
They did. They often do because, you know, the park takes its toll. But the weather was really rough this past winter. So they cleaned up a lot of the older species, a lot of the dead branches. Again, they removed some of the invasive species of plants as well. So they're really doing a lot to make sure the park stays clean and fresh and vibrant. Because
now the other thing is that later on this year, there will be some other events coming up in the summer, usually some arts and cultural events there.
Absolutely. So for Discover Roxbury, one of the big events we have coming up, and a new one, is Gospel Night at the Boston Symphony Orchestra. It's actually going to be a weekend-long event called Inspired Arts Weekend, where we will have open house tours of Symphony Hall in conjunction with the Boston Pops. There will also be a reception and a gospel concert with the Boston Pops Gospel Choir and the Blind Boys of Alabama. And some of the artists from Roxbury will have visual artwork on display around Symphony Hall.
So talk about the formula behind this, because it sounds like an interesting way to engage different kinds of people. You know, it's good for the orchestra because they're getting a new audience, but it's also good for the artists. I mean, what's the feeling? Maybe you're potentially contributing here. So what's the
I hope so. I mean, they're definitely looking for some artworks. I hope to contribute something. But it's really a nice way to collaborate, not just on building joint audiences, but also building joint programming as well. So Gospel Night as a night has been happening for a while. So this expanded arts opening / preview is something that's new for all of us involved. So both for the Boston Pops, for the chorus, for Discover Roxbury, for the artists. So it's just a nice way to get us all involved and working together in different ways.
Well, speaking of outdoor events again, Discover Roxbury does these continually. I imagine you have some things coming up later this year as well?
We do. So in June, we have our 2 garden tours. So June 20th is the Highland Park Garden Walk, and June 27th is the Mount Pleasant Roxbury in Bloom tour. So those are 2 tours where you'll get to see 2 different parts of Roxbury. You'll get to see home gardeners, lots of beautiful parks in those areas, and it's just a great way to see the neighborhood in a different way.
And you know, I went on one of these tours last year. It was also a fascinating way to learn about the history. We're going back, you know, people who were involved in the civil rights in the 1960s, but also going back to the 1700s.
It's the Revolutionary era, exactly. Yeah. So just the architecture alone in the neighborhood informs you in terms of how historic the areas are. So the guides don't just talk about the plants and the flowers, they also talk about the architecture and the history involved with all of those.
So you mentioned if people want to find out more about what's on the schedule, Derek, you've got a website that they can check out?
Absolutely. They should go to discoverroxbury.org.